Hello and welcome to the show. This week's FailRace vs Community was pretty much an open C-class with a few of the four of the top leaderboard cars banned, just to keep a bit of variety. Our first race was at the Hockenheim short circuit. This track never fails to produce exciting racing. Whenever we've used it for championships or whenever we've used it for versus community, this track normally generates some fairly exciting racing. Of course, at the first corner, there is always somebody who forgets that we're driving on the short circuit, despite my best efforts to tell people. And sure enough, there was, I think, maybe been a couple of cars that either outbraked themselves quite a lot or just forgot where they were going. At the front, though, it was very close racing off the start line, as everybody is pretty much just nose to tail through this section. The reason this track produces such great racing is there are so many places to overtake. Pretty much every corner you can overtake on. There is a little bit of a bump into the hairpin. A Renault Twingo has a very opportunistic move there, gets past two people, although sadly has a bit of a coming together with a BMW. I didn't spot that before. That Twingo made up loads of good time through that hairpin. Yeah, this track has so many good overtaking spots because there are so many sort of fairly long straights followed by fairly tight corners. Your first corner is one of the trickiest places to overtake. There's another corner further around as well that's quite hard, but everywhere else is a really good overtaking spot, which means there is lots of overtaking. There is lots of close racing, and you can see how close the pack is together. At the moment we run into the first corner, there's three cars there, all within millimetres of each other. And that's what's great about this track, as they're almost going three wide into the second corner as well. It is, it was some very exciting racing. Me and Husky had started towards the back. In fact, I think Husky was on the back row and I was just in front of him. My Alpha was making pretty good progress through the field, though Husky Subaru very good through the corners, not very good on the straights. And while this isn't the longest track, there are quite a few sort of semi-straights, and Husky Subaru was really struggling around here. My Alpha, though, was in fact a very good car. I kind of picked my cars not quite at random, but this was a bit of a gamble. I didn't know how well this car would turn out, and it's really rather good. There's a little bit of a coming together between Hudson Hornet and I think that was the BMW that was slowly falling down the order. This Alpha had a great combination of straight line speed and still being controllable through the corners as I was battling to find my way past a Sierra Cosworth. As we run onto the front straight, I have a better run out of the final corner and I have better straight line speed. I'm trying to look to go to the inside the Sierra covers, and you're not going to really go around the outside at the first corner. It's a tough place to overtake at the best of times. On the outside is very, very unlikely. However, I do a sort of a cutback on the exit of the first corner, manage to keep my car on the inside, and we take a dive into the second corner and can get the move done there. The Sierra tries to come back a little bit, however I just have the acceleration and the straight line speed. A couple of laps later and my Alpha was really making very good progress. While the rest of the pack was all very, very close, there wasn't sort of a huge amount of battling going on. While I was making up quite a lot of time, I found myself on the inside of a Lotus Cortina as we head into the first corner. That's where you want to be if you're going for an overtaking manoeuvre. However, I can't quite get my car stopped, and the Cortina tries to come back at me with a cutback and kind of gets the move done. However, he outbrakes himself a little bit into the second corner, and I can do a cutback on him, and then I can make up the position. Yeah, this Alpha, it really is an excellent car. The straight line speed is such an advantage here. As you can see, the Cortina actually had a better run onto this. I had a sort of better acceleration onto this bit of straight, but the speed of the Alpha made it very, very hard to pass. Ignore the Hudson Hornet there. Unfortunately, I think it's the only lag spike of the evening that really occurred, killed the Hornet. But we did pretty well for not having too many laggy cars. The Twingo caused a little bit of a problem later on, but at this stage was doing okay. I tried to go around the outside of the Twingo, which is an ill-advised move, as I left myself open to attack from the Cortina. Didn't realise quite how close he was. I can just about use the acceleration to get away with it. But that was sort of a half-assed attempt from me to get past the Twingo. Almost ended in disaster. So yeah, you don't want to be doing that too often. At the front, the Mustang had an off at some point. Not entirely sure where he fell off the road, which had let the Datsun pass, and he just couldn't find a way back past. This sort of battle goes on for 3 or 4 laps. Probably one of the most intense battles we've seen for a long time versus the community race. The Datsun, rather surprisingly, I don't know what engine's powering this Datsun, but the Datsun was the quicker of the two in a straight line, and the Mustang was better through the corners. I realise that sounds quite weird. However, the Mustang was quite a lot quicker through the corner. The Datsun, you could see how much of a how much of a gap he's made down that back straight. That really is quite a quick car in a straight line. However, he doesn't have the grip through the corners, and this just goes to show how you have to be very careful when you're building your car for a race like this. While the Mustang is no doubtedly quicker around a lap of this track, the Datsun can keep him behind, because your overtaking is going to happen in the braking zones, and the braking zones are the biggest braking zones at the end of a long straight. And by the end of a long straight, the Datsun has pulled out a pretty big margin over the Mustang, meaning the Mustang has to make up an awful lot of ground through the corners to even stand a chance of getting near the Datsun. He is giving him an assist as we come onto the back straight. You can see how much the Datsun is struggling for grip, sliding out of every corner, trying to get the power down as early as possible. But the Mustang just doesn't have the speed. Behind, while all of this was going on, there was a rather large train of cars as well, you might have noticed, all battling over fourth. There was a lot going on in this race. As ever, Hockenheim really didn't disappoint. The Mustang is getting a little bit impatient. There's a little bit of a bump, because the Mustang can just put more power down. It can get slightly better acceleration out of the corners, and then the Datsun is absolutely gone. This car has some ridiculous engine in it, as that really is rather fast. I would imagine it's probably faster than my Alpha as well in a straight line. That's probably the quickest car here. However, he just cannot hold it through the corners. It's sliding everywhere. Again, there's a little bit of a tag between the two cars. Still, the Datsun sliding the Mustangs up the inside, but he cannot get the move done as he just doesn't have the speed. The Datsun is still on the inside for the hairpin. There's a long way to go around the outside of the hairpin. It can be done. However, the Datsun's just got so much acceleration out of the corner. The Mustang doesn't really stand a chance, and again, the Mustang's too far back to have a dive here. Your best bet is really to have the car in front make a mistake. It's so hard to find a place to get past when the car in front is defending heavily and has a straight line speed advantage. You either got to muscle your way past at some point, or hope that he runs wide, hope that he makes a mistake, because it really is, there's so little you can do. Because you're just too far back when you come to the braking zones. Again, the Datsun even runs a bit wide in the first corner, and still the Mustang isn't close enough as they run onto the back straight. The Mustang's looking, he makes so much ground up through the corner, but the Datsun will just pull away as they come down this back straight. This time though, the Mustang is a little bit closer, which is always good, as this next place is a very good overtaking opportunity, and eventually the Datsun just outbrakes himself, just runs a little bit too wide, and that was the mistake the Mustang needed. He dives up the inside, and the Datsun tries his best to go around the outside. You're not going to hold it there though, not with the car that's not got as much grip, and then the Mustang can hold his line into the hairpin, runs a little bit wide, but the Datsun doesn't really have the grip to capitalise on it. And yeah, the battle at the front was excellent. The battle further back was also pretty damn good. I'd managed to clear the Twingo, and there was now a three-way scrap all over 5th position. I can't remember. This Husky was struggling with this Subaru, but yeah, I think this battle was all over 5th place. The Cortina still could not find a way past the Twingo. He'd try. I think the Cortina must have tried on every single corner to find a way past that Twingo. He just couldn't do it as the Sierra got very sideways out of the final corner. The Twingo pulls up alongside him. However, the Sierra just has that straight line speed and can hold his position into the first corner. The Cortina is again looking. There's a little bit of a lag going on there for the Renault. Cortina is on the inside but cannot get the move done. The Twingo actually got a very good run out of that first corner. Is looking around the outside of the Sierra. Not quite got enough grip to do that. I think I may have been off the road. I swear I saw my car on the dirt. But yeah, again, this is another excellent battle. Hockenheim always produces, or Hockenheim short circuit I should say, always produces very, very good racing. The Sierra's got a moment to breathe as it's got the better straight line speed. The Cortina hits up the inside of the Twingo and again still can't get the move done. The Cortina must have been getting quite frustrated by the end of that race, having spent so long behind the Twingo. At the front though, and the Mustang was just doing enough to keep the Datsun behind. These two were very, very close in lap times, and however, the Datsun just couldn't quite keep up with it through the corners. If the Datsun had stayed in front, I think the Mustang, if the Datsun hadn't made any mistakes, I think the Mustang would have found it really hard to get past him. That straight line speed is so important when you're trying to defend. So the Mustang is going to take the win in round 1. As I said, Hockenheim short. Excellent racing here. It really was. It's probably one of the best races that I've edited, I've watched. There was so much much action going on. My Alpha was absolutely flying towards the end of the lap. I got the quickest lap in the end. This thing is so fast. I was amazed how quick this Alpha was. I'd caught up to the back of an MX-5 who unfortunately got a little bit confused, got a little bit wrong, ends up out wide and gets held up by a back marker. I was hoping I could have a dive up the inside that corner. That was the plan. Unfortunately, the MX-5 just ran into a bit of traffic, which is a shame. That would have been an incredibly close finish between me and the Mazda. Yeah, it was a really excellent race. Husky unfortunately didn't have quite such an enjoyable time, finishing down in 8th with the Subaru that was really struggling in a straight line. Race 2 goes to the Iberian circuit. I finally get to run this place again. Don't run this track very often. For the high-speed cars, this place is a little bit too short. But since we were running C-Class cars, I wanted to race here. I love Iberian. If you haven't watched many of our videos before, this is by far my favourite track. So yeah, I was hoping to do well. I got a decent grid spot fairly near the front. For those of you who are wondering, the grids are set to random, so you will end up in all sorts of different places in these races. Husky started even in front of me, and we were now locked in a battle. Never try and go around the outside of a car that's understeering as well. That was a really not a good place to be. The Porsche was keeping up with us as well. We'd pulled a pretty substantial gap to the rest of the field in the first half a lap. I think there was a bit of a crash behind us as well. I get caught out by Husky braking a little bit early, clatter into the back of him. The Porsche though was doing really well. I was surprised to suddenly look behind me and see a Porsche almost on the inside of me at the final corner. This is the Alpha strong point though. While the straights here isn't particularly long, you can get an advantage by having that car with just a little bit more speed, which is what the Alpha is. As we come up towards the first corner, I had a think. I thought about going around the outside of Husky. Didn't think it would work though, as he's got much better grip. Tried to do a bit of a cutback on him again. Couldn't quite get it done. The Subaru did struggle a lot in a straight line. However, through the corners, it was pretty damn good. I couldn't have got much closer coming through this section. I was literally right on his bumper through there. I was trying to get a really good run up towards Diabolica and dive up the inside. This time I got my car in the right position. However, the Subaru just has the grip. It could hold the line around the outside, and as I have a fairly poor exit, the Porsche is now right on our tail as well. The Porsche is also absolutely tiny. Very hard to see where the Porsche is in the rearview mirror because that car is absolutely diddy. I mean, the Alpha is a pretty damn small car, and the Porsche is just... yeah, it's ridiculously small. As we run out of the final corner, as I said, I honestly had no clue where the Porsche was, so I apologise for moving over on him a little bit. However, we both slowed each other down on the back straight, and the Porsche actually has the better drive. I find myself having to go defensive as we run into the first corner. Husky gets a bit of breathing space, however just gets a bit of oversteer middle of the corner. Not what you want. As he runs wide, I can dive up the inside and take first position away from him. The Porsche then tries to follow me. It's always scary going too wide through the bomb hole section. Unfortunately, Husky gets things a little bit wrong, gets a little bit of understeer, and as they go over the jump, both of them end up going sideways. And when a little Porsche comes up against a considerably bigger Subaru, the Porsche ends up coming off worse. Husky takes a bit of damage. The Porsche sadly ends up in the wall with a broken engine and drops through the field. It's just one of those accidents. When you go too wide over the jump, it is always it can always be problematic when cars are sliding around. The midfield was also very busy, very congested, and plenty of good racing, which is rare. Iberian is a very tough place to overtake on, one of the toughest tracks to overtake on, because the corners are so fast. There are very little braking zones for any of these corners, which makes it such a tough place to overtake it. However, this is the battle for, I believe, 5th. There are 4 cars all squabbling over 5th position. All of the cars had their own strengths and their own weaknesses. The Escort Cosworth that we are following at the moment was probably the best handling through the corners. However, it struggled in a straight line. The Sierra was a bit more of a mix of straight line speed and handling. The Cortina was a bit better through the corners than the Sierra, but not quite as good as the Escort Cosworth, sorry. And the Integra was incredibly fast in a straight line. The Integra was ridiculously quick, made up so much ground on even that fairly short straight. However, did struggle through the corners. As you saw, he made the move into the first corner. However, he just couldn't keep control of his car, and again, despite being on the inside, just doesn't have the grip. Whereas the Escort is very quick through these sort of high-speed corners does struggle a lot in a straight line, possibly running a bit more aero. You can see the massive wing on the back of it, probably running a bit more downforce than the rest of the cars. To be fair, the Integra has a massive wing as well, but maybe more downforce or different engine parts, different upgrade choice, meant that, yeah, the Escort was good through the corners, the Integra was very good on the straights, as the Sierra get things a little bit wrong through the quadruple apex right-hander. The Escort moves up into 5th position, a slight snag between the two Fords, and now the Integra's turn to sort of use its, I guess you could say, its speciality section. The Integra makes up so much time down here. You'll see how much he's already got past the Sierra, and as he comes into the first corners on the inside of the Escort, if you can get it stopped, get it turned, and not have too much oversteer on the exit, which he does this time, this is so much easier to overtake when you've got that extra straight line speed. You are going to have to hang on to the car through the corners a little bit. You may not have the ultimate lap time. You may not be able to get quite as fast a lap as the Escort. However, it does mean you can get past it a hell of a lot easier. And the Cortina was struggling a little bit to try and find his way past the Sierra. The Sierra goes very, very defensive. Fortunately, runs a bit wide on the exit, and the Cortina can do a fairly simple cutback on him. There was so much overtaking going on. This never normally happens when you race at Iberian. Again, even further, this is later on into the race, and there's a Maserati 300S catching up to the Sierra and the Escort. I think the Fords may have had a bit of a coming together at some point. They lost a bit of time to the Cortina and the Integra. The Maserati is another car here that was phenomenally quick in a straight line. Having a look around the outside of a Sierra towards the bomb hole section, yeah, that's going to be pretty tricky in a classic race car. The downside of running one of these classic race cars is that the Maserati starts off very, very near the top of C-Class, which means there are very little upgrades you can do to it. Unlikely to be running race tires. I very highly doubt you can fit them on this vehicle, which means it's going to be an absolute handful through the corners. The Civic was very, very good through the corners, and another decent overtake there, good opportunistic overtaking spot there, as the Maserati just struggles to keep his car on the road. However, we come to a straight, and it's a whole nother story. The Civic, very good through the corners, is going to be slow on the straight, while the Maserati is ridiculously quick. This and the Integra were probably the quickest cars here, at least on this track. They were absolutely destroying everybody. Breezes past the Civic, catches up to the Sierra and the Escort. Maserati finds himself on the inside. Sierra gets a little bit squeezed, unfortunately. That was nearly an incredible overtake from the Maserati. He got a little bit unfortunate in that one. The Sierra got squeezed, and in the end squeezed the Maserati a little bit as well. The downside to the Maserati is very quick. However, you're more likely to make a mistake. He just caught the curb a little bit wrong and dragged the car onto, I think it's like sticky stuff over there. And yeah, that's the downside of running a car like that, is you've got to make no mistakes, and it's so hard not to make mistakes in a car that's that difficult to drive. At the front, though, things have been very simple for my Alfa. After Husky's collision with the Porsche, he lost a little bit of performance. Had sort of not massive amounts of aero damage, but that's enough to cause some problems. And my Alfa was absolutely flying around here. Yeah, this car really was good around here. I had a fairly substantial gap back to Husky. Yeah, it was a pretty boring race for me after the first couple of laps. However, elsewhere, again, it was another incredibly exciting race that you don't normally see this sort of thing at Iberian. It's very rare to see so much overtaking. While it wasn't particularly close at the front, it was a lot closer further back. Can't remember what position this is for. The positions changed so much. I tried my best to keep track while I was editing this. I just have no clue. I think this is for around 8th or 9th or something like that. The Civic has a dive up the inside at the final corner, pushes the Escort a little bit wide, but as they run onto the back straight, the Escort has the better straight line speed. The Sierra that's behind them, though, has even more straight line speed. As they come across the line, it is all very, very close. The Civic in the end gets it from a tiny margin to the Escort that was only a fraction ahead of the Sierra, and the Maserati was recovering from its earlier off. Yeah, that was probably one of the best races I've ever seen at Iberian in versus the community. Anyway, we've had a couple of good golf races there, but yeah, that was a surprisingly eventful race. The third and final race is at the Silverstone International Circuit, another circuit that is a pretty good place to overtake on. The first corner here is normally not not particularly eventful. It's this next section that can often get a little bit crashy and a little bit scary. With the exception of a Prius that got things a bit wrong, everybody else got through here very well behaved for a versus community race. I believe an MX-5 may have taken a knock from somebody, and then there could have been crashes towards the, or a couple of bumps towards the back, but it was a very well behaved sort of first few corners at Silverstone, which is good to see. In fact, this whole evening everything has been very well behaved, and there wasn't too many connection issues, there wasn't too many lag spikes. There was a couple of sort of slightly laggy cars you just see here, a laggy 240 SX, but on the whole it was a very successful evening. This Sierra Cosworth finds himself on the inside of the Nissan and can get the move done before they even get towards bridge. The Nissan may be sort of thinking of having a look, having a dive at this next corner, a little bit far back. He tries it, he gives it a go, but it is too far back and can't get to the position. Further back, things were rather hectic, shall we say. This is towards the bottom half of the top 10. We've got an MX-5, there's an MGB, there's a Chevy Impala, a Honda Fit, there's all sorts of cars in this kind of group. The Impala's on the grass as they run up towards the first corner. The MX-5, of course, very good through the corners. As you can see, it's going around the outside of the MG. There's a Civic on the grass that everybody does a very good job of avoiding. However, MX-5 with a big wing is going to be pretty slow on the straights, and Silverstone does involve quite a lot of straights. The international circuit does. In fact, all of Silverstone circuits involve at least one very long straight. So the Mazda is going to struggle down this section. Of course, it's very fast in the final section. Yeah, that's where how you build your car, what choice of car you have is all very important. You can see the speed of the Impala as well, because it catches up to the MX-5 as they run into the hairpin. The Impala is being very brave and trying to go around the outside of an MX-5. That is a tough manoeuvre to do at the best of times, let alone with a big American car. Can't quite make it stick, but I applaud you for trying. Around there, the Impala then has so much speed as they come towards the bridge, can actually get the move done before they ever reach the corner. Of course, it's unlikely the Impala will be able to hold off an MX-5 through these corners. The MX-5 can just carry so much more corner speed, goes around the outside of him. I've not seen a car go quite around the outside like that before. Not really surprising though, considering the sort of the levels of grip difference between these two vehicles. The MX-5 can kind of do that, and you'll see how much distance this Mazda makes up through these corners compared to the cars in front of him. However, you're going to come back onto this straight a little bit of a knock between the pair of them there, and that's where the Mazda does sort of struggle a little bit. Husky had got a little bit sad with his Subaru. It just wasn't quick enough on the straights, and this track does involve an awful lot of straights, so he swapped to, I think, the only other car he said he had in C-Class, which is a Plymouth Hemi Cuda, and that's why it's in a different paint job, because this is what it was painted with, what it was in his garage. And this thing was ridiculously fast in a straight line. Again, we have another vehicle that was very fast down the straights, but it's a big heavy muscle car, which means it is going to struggle through the corners. Yeah, also the Hemi Cuda does start off as a C-Class already, which means you are limited to what you can put on it. I don't know, you might just about get racing tyres on it, but you won't get much more if that's what you put on it. So yeah, while very quick down the straight bits, it does struggle an awful lot through the corners. You can see the Lexus got past it with relative ease. The Honda CRX that's behind them is actually almost as quick as the Hemi in a straight line. I was amazed how fast that Honda was. It's stupidly quick in a straight line. Now you'll see the speed of the Cuda though. It just breezes past the Lexus as they come up towards the first corner. Yeah, having that much power, that much straight line speed is very useful at a place like Silverstone. The CRX, again, but as you can see behind them, was also keeping up pretty much with that Plymouth in a straight line. Again, the CRX is not going to be particularly good through the corners. I guess the guy who built this car has gone more for the straight line speed aspect and maybe ignored a few of the handling parts that other cars have on. As you can see, CRX again makes mincemeat of the what was it, a Lexus in a straight line. He now comes up against 240 SX, gets a little bit crowded through the through the Mays and Beckett's section. Sorry, it's very hard to follow a car closely through that section, as everybody has a slightly different way of taking that corner. Some people brake a little bit earlier, some people brake a little bit later, and you can often have unintended shunts through there just because people have slightly different driving styles, although they come onto the next straight section and the CRX breezes past the Lexus. Has a little bit of kind here. I don't think he expected the 240SX to be quite so slow on the corners, and now they end up side by side again. CRX got probably the worst run off the corner, but has so much acceleration that he can pull to the inside, and everybody's trying to go 3 wide through bridge. That's a scary prospect. It so nearly works. That was so nearly the best overtake I think we've seen on Versus the Community. Unfortunately, the CRX runs sort of understeering, and the Lexus is on the outside, and they end up tangling together. The Honda Fit manages to make up 2 positions out of it, which is not too bad for him. Yeah, that was so nearly an amazing overtake. A bit unfortunate, that one. And then the CRX continues its battle with the Lexus. That's just one of those things. There's absolutely nothing you can do about that one. I suspect the Lexus had no clue where the CRX was in that one. While I may have led this race from pretty much the first corner, it certainly wasn't anywhere near as easy as Iberian was. The Sierra Cosworth was keeping me fairly honest, and as I made a mistake on the final corner, pretty big mistake as well, the Sierra is right on me, and while this Alpha has excellent acceleration and fairly decent top speed, it was such a bad run onto the sort of the start-finish straight. I was in a little bit of trouble. I was going to have to defend fairly heavily with the Sierra pretty much on my back bumper. As I go defensive into the first corner, I'm going to run a little bit wide on the exit, and sure enough, the Sierra tries to do the cutback on me and can get his car up alongside me. I have good acceleration, however, with such a sort of a slightly wonky run onto this section, I just don't have the speed. I can't get back alongside the Sierra. I get very close. I thought I was going to be in the boot of the Ford, just got the Alpha stopped. that was a bit of a scary moment, I'll be honest, and then this is where the acceleration of the Alpha comes in. The Sierra wasn't actually that much slower than me top speed wise, just the Alpha had better acceleration. It got to its top speed quicker. You can see we've sort of evened out towards the end of the straight. However, I can keep my car on the inside, make sure I hold the inside line here, don't want to drift out wide. The Sierra was trying to get a cutback on me there, but I managed to sort of hold on to the position. And if we come towards bridge, I know this is where I'm in a little bit of trouble. I have to make sure I can kind of hold the position through here. This is where the Ford is much stronger than the Alpha. The Alpha's good through the first couple of sectors, loses quite a bit through this final one, just doesn't have the handling of the Sierra. But I was quite surprised to see the Sierra not running aero. I never run aero because I like to have that little bit of straight line speed. The Sierra was very good handling. Must have gone for pretty much all handling parts on that car. You can see how much we were trying as both cars are sort of sliding about on the exit of the final corner. However, that was to be the finish in order. The Alpha's just got so much acceleration onto the straight that the Sierra just couldn't quite keep up with it. Our fastest laps were within literally hundredths of a second. I can't quite remember which way round it was, but the fastest laps between these two cars were ridiculous. We also had a humongous lead over the rest of the field. These two were very quick and very well suited to this track, both with our own strengths and weaknesses. But it wasn't sort of massive overtaking in this battle, but it certainly was a very intense battle throughout the race. And yeah, another very enjoyable race. In the end, Husky managed to come fourth with his Hemi Cuda. Not bad, despite the fact he started 15th on the grid. Anyway, that is it for this video, guys. This was probably the best versus the community that we've had. There really was an awful lot going on. The Silverstone race was a little bit quieter than the first two, but yeah, it really was an excellent versus the community. I highly enjoyed this one. So yeah, let's hope we can have some more like this. Now, the next versus the community we are going to be doing is on January the 23rd. We will be starting at 7 PM GMT time. The vehicles we are going to be using are going to be A-Class, and we are going to restrict it to manufacturer. We haven't done one of these for a while. Husky suggested this, and we're going to run A-Class Mercedes, yeah, whatever, because that sounds that sounds interesting. Going to be interesting to see how people build their cars for this one, as you can go for handling or you can go for an awful lot of straight line speed. A-Class Mercedes can be very, very quick in a straight line. So yeah, this one's going to be interesting. Might not have quite as much close battling in this one. We shall see. It could be quite cool. Who knows? We're going to give it a go and see what happens. If you wish to take part in it, then you can go to our forum. That is where you sign up. There will be a link in the description. Go to the Versus the Community section and the sign up thread, and that is how you join one of these races. Anyway, that is it for today. So thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.